Hey there! Are you an entrepreneur looking to start, launch, or grow a podcast? If you said yes, I am so happy you're here. I'm Kristen, a video and podcast producer and CEO of Novice Studios, a production company for podcasters. I help business owners launch and grow their podcasts to serve their audience, build community, and boost sales. I hope you'll subscribe to our show so we can help your show grow from novice to noteworthy. Hello, and welcome back to the Novice to Noteworthy podcast. I alluded on my Instagram, if you follow me over at Novice Studios CLT on Instagram, that I had recorded an episode called Flop Era that was talking about what an absolute shit show this year has been for me. And in this episode, I'm going to share just some of the background of just what's been going on with me and what this year has been. It's kind of a life update episode, and I would love to, I've already outlined a series on exiting my flop era and the things that have helped me kind of pull myself out of this really chaotic season of life that honestly I'm still in. Like, there's still so much that's happening in my personal life and health things going on. And so figuring out how to balance that with everything else that's going on, having a business, I think is relevant to this podcast because podcasting is something that if you're not consistent with it, your show's not going to grow, the content's not going to work for you and your business. And so energy management and being able to balance it along with other life things is a huge part of the content creation process. And so I did want to talk about it on this podcast because I think it would be helpful to a lot of people. So let's get into it. If you're on my email list, then you got a newsletter earlier this year about how January was probably the worst month of business that I've ever had in the 3 years that I've had my business. And actually, what day is it? July 19th. In just a few days, it'll be the 3-year anniversary of Novice Studios from when I'm recording this. And January was really hard. So I had a baby in October and had a really difficult birth, a really difficult postpartum recovery, I guess you could say. I developed postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety that ended up turning into OCD, which I'd never dealt with before. And in January, like I'd always planned to come back in January after giving birth in October. And I was hoping to kind of ease back into it. And it ended up like yes and no, easing back into it. I worked for a majority of my maternity leave for various reasons, which honestly can be a whole other episode in itself. But in January, the first week that I was back, literally half of our clients dropped for various reasons. Some of them were just taking an extended break from the holidays. They were like, we're not ready to come back yet. Like, we're enjoying this time off. Some clients who took their production in-house, some clients who just like wanted to focus on other things besides their podcast. None of it having to do with us, but it still just felt like such a huge gut punch to have like half of our recurring revenue go away immediately. And then I had a contractor who stole our packages and kind of our overall, not that our business model is necessarily the most unique thing in the world, but copied literally piece by piece with the names of our packages and everything, copied all of it and was promoting the work that our entire team had done and that I had done as something that was just hers, and misrepresenting, her contributions to our clients' podcast, promoting her own podcast production company. And it was like such a huge gut punch, gut punch number 2 of January. On top of that, I guess to wrap up that story, because I don't want to get too far into it in this episode, but having to have that really difficult and confrontational conversation and then reaching out to an attorney to make sure that we were within our rights. We were within our rights to like get into cease and desist territory It was really frustrating and it felt very violating. And we had our son at home. And so I let that person go, obviously, and then took on all the client work that they were doing immediately. So easing back into it, I don't know her. We don't know about easing into anything. And our son was still at home because he wasn't in daycare yet. We were still waiting for a spot to open up. So it was just a very chaotic month. And miraculously, I still felt very creative during that time. I don't know if it was just like getting back into things and just being excited to get back to work, since I feel like so much of my business is tied to my identity, which is a part of why I'm in my flop era. But it just made me feel like myself to be working, and to have all those things happen back to back just felt like it was setting up 2023 to be a rough year. And it has proven to continue to be a rough year, but we're making it, we're surviving. In February, even though I had been going to therapy to work on the OCD through exposure therapy, and to, talk through some of the depression that I was having, postpartum rage that I was having, in February, I just hit rock bottom when it came to my mental health and started having some really dark thoughts about not wanting to be here anymore. And at that point, I was like, enough is enough. And I started medication. And that has been absolutely life-changing for me and such a huge game changer. I feel like I've actually been able to enjoy motherhood. I've been able to enjoy work as like a thing that I do and not as the thing that defines me as a person. And that has helped me manage everything else that's happened this year so much better. So highly recommend medication if you haven't tried it. I had to really address like some of the stigmas that I still had about mental health and medication, that I thought that I was like, if you need to take medication to feel better and to live your life normally and to show up as the person that you want to be, that's awesome. And then when it was time for me to consider it, I was like, me? I need help. That was really hard for me, but it's hands down one of the best decisions that I've made this entire year to start that. And it's been super, super helpful. To kind of wrap up the shit show of the year up to this point, our son's been hospitalized twice with respiratory failure, which is some of the scariest things that I've ever been through in my life. We're trying to get more answers on why that's happening. And our dog, Max, our older dog, has had surgery, had to have like not emergency surgery, but he was in a lot of pain and had tore basically the dog equivalent of his ACL in one leg. And so he had surgery about the time my son had COVID. And then we all got COVID. And then he just hurt his other leg a couple weeks ago. And we just heard this morning that he has to get surgery on his other leg. So it's just been like thing after thing after thing this year. And so naturally, I have not felt very creative in the midst of all that. And so this podcast fell off. My client I fell really behind on the like one-off client projects that I was doing that I'd taken on, because I was like, okay, I have some more time, and all these clients dropped. So I have, this extra capacity, and all of that while trying to figure out like, what does having a business and being a mom look like? And when I was preparing for maternity leave, all I saw from other women who were preparing for maternity leave was like, I'm only taking 6 weeks. Like, I'll be back after 6 weeks. And it was their, like, at least their second child, if not like they have more than that. And so I was like, am I crazy for wanting to take 3 months? Like, it felt like you're just supposed to get back into it. And I was told I was going to miss working and I was going to want to get back to it as soon as possible. And I did not feel that way at all. And it's not that I don't enjoy my business, or that I don't enjoy the people that I work with, but I was like, I just don't feel ready. But I didn't have a choice because I had let this person go and I had to get back into it. It's been a crazy year. And so all of that has led to major flop era vibes. Feeling like I'm behind all the time. And I feel like as of this week, like when I sat down to make my to-do list for the week, I was like, oh my God, I'm like actually almost caught up. And it felt so good to be at that place. And so I was like, I feel creative. Like, let's knock out some podcast episodes. Let's do this. And so that's kind of what, started this. So, kind of part one, besides that whole backstory, is finding things that make me feel like myself. I know with motherhood, but then also with a business, having a business and feeling like your entire identity is tied to your performance in your business, how well your business is doing. When your business isn't doing well, when revenue isn't where you want it to be, when profit margins aren't where you want them to be, it makes it feel like you are a failure as a person instead of just these things aren't working out and I can tweak those things because who I am as a person is resilient and who I am as a person is ambitious and visionary. And I know that things can get better and I know what I need to do. Like I know that I'm strategic, but it felt like, oh, I need to pay somebody to tell me what to do because I can't trust myself. So, kind of part one of exiting my flop era has been doing things that make me feel like myself and that make me feel like I have my shit together, even if my to do list says, no, you don't. You don't. And my overdue ClickUp tasks say no. You do not have your shit together at all whatsoever. So the first thing has been, I already talked about it, going to therapy and getting on medication have both been super life-changing and game-changing for me. It's been expensive because we switched. My husband moved jobs also in February. And so our health insurance changed. And when that happened, my therapy stopped being covered. But my therapist has been with me through so many huge life changes over the last couple of years that I didn't want to change therapists. And so that's been a big expense, but it's been worth it. Your mental health and just your health in general are the most important things. And so having that every other week and taking medication daily has been awesome. And I know the medication might not be forever. It's just for right now, but it's just helping me tremendously. Another thing has been getting ready. This is something that if you work from home, I know during COVID times, it was like sweatpants, messy bun, camera off. Like that was the vibe. I have found that like blowing out my hair and putting on makeup every day, even if nobody's going to see me and I have no calls, just like some basic, like low coverage foundation and mascara has made me feel like a human being. And it's made me feel so good and just more confident. I wouldn't say that it did wonders for like my productivity or anything, but it just made me feel put together and it made me feel like I had my shit together. And so that has been a part of my daily routine now. And I just do it super quick. I mean, it takes me like 15 minutes to blow out my hair. It takes me 10 minutes to do my makeup. And just those 25 minutes, I don't blow my hair out every single day, but fixing up my hair, doing my makeup has just made me feel so much better and just made me feel like I can tackle the day no matter what happens and what comes to me. If we're going to end up in the hospital tonight, I know that I look good. It's like the least important thing. But it just makes me feel like, okay, I can show up assertively. I can roll my shoulders back. I can tell these doctors that like, you need to fix my kid and you need to tell me what the hell is going on. Or I can have that conversation with this client that's like, hey, this needs to get done, or we're missing these things from you, or have this difficult conversation. Like it just makes me feel like I can show up more confidently. Another big thing that we've been working on this year and has kind of been it's mostly me, like my big project or undertaking outside of my business has been just organizing things around our house. There have been a lot of moments where I was like, I can't find this thing that I need, or this feels really inefficient because we've been to the hospital so many times. I have like basically a go bag now with toiletries ready to go. And, I hate that we're in that position, but I know where everything is. We've organized so many different closets. My clothes closet, I went through all my maternity clothes. I went out and bought new clothes. I was like, my body just is what it is right now. I'm not going to wait until I fit into my old clothes to stop wearing maternity clothes, put all my maternity stuff and baby things away, put my new clothes on display and just organized everything, got rid of a ton of clothes that I'm not going to wear anymore. And it just felt so good to just like get all of that out of the house and to organize things so that when I walk into my closet, I don't feel stressed and frazzled and like I can't find clothes that fit me and that are going to make me feel good and confident and beautiful. And just like taking care of those things, even organizing our garage. I went through every item in our garage. I got rid of what we don't need anymore. We bought some new shelves for the garage. And now when I get home and I'm walking into the door or when I step out of the door to get into my car, I'm like, oh my God, this is so nice. Like there's not just like shit everywhere and like cobwebs everywhere. Like everything is clean and it's nice and it's put together. And it's just made me so much less stressed when I know that like I can't control like what a client is going to throw at me today, and I can't control what's going to happen with my son's health necessarily. I do everything I can, but at the end of the day, like we don't know what each day is going to bring, but I know that like my home is a safe, comfortable, stress-free place for me to be while I'm working. When we get home from the hospital, when I get home from a long shoot day, like I know that I'm going to come home and I'm going to be comfortable and I'm going to not be stressed about all the clutter that's everywhere. That has been huge this year with everything going on with our dog and Jack, my son, and just like life things. I have extended family things going on that I'm just not even going to get into or talk about on this podcast, but I can't control any of those things, but I can control my environment and I can control myself. And taking control of those things and owning those things has been so pivotal for helping me feel like I'm finally getting caught up on all the things I need to get done. Also, on the health side of things for me personally, like I said, I had a really difficult birth with my son and a difficult labor process, and it resulted in a lot of residual issues in my body and a lot of pain. And for anybody that's listening, pain is not normal. If you are feeling pain, your body is telling you that something is wrong. It's not something to push through. It's not something to ignore. It's something to contact your doctor about. So I've been in pelvic floor physical therapy. Even though I had a C-section, I didn't even know that your pelvic floor could still get, totally jacked up from having a C-section. But it was. And so I just graduated. I just graduated from pelvic floor PT, and it has like not having that pain in my body. I didn't realize how much it was burdening me mentally and physically to have that pain and that tension. Not having it anymore has also been, it's something that I honestly take for granted. Like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I really need to acknowledge that, because not having that pain has totally changed the game for how I show up in my business, in my life, in my work, and, as a wife, as a mom, all the things. And so taking care of that and addressing that has very much helped me exit my flop era, because I can do things now that I couldn't before. I can walk long distances. Running is still kind of painful and irritates my abdomen, and my knees. My knees are jacked, y'all. They're jacked. Doing my physical therapy for my hip. I have a hip deformity. I've got a lot of stuff going on, guys, in my body. And just making sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to take care of that so that I'm not in pain is so important. And those are the first things to go when life gets busy and things get chaotic. I stop doing my stretches. I stop doing my physical therapy exercises, and I feel the difference. So making sure that I prioritize that over, like, I've been looking at all these super intense workout programs and I'm like, oh, I want to get back into stuff like that. I need to take it slow and force myself to just relax, do the things that are the foundational things and focus on that first before we get into all of the, more intense, more detailed, more leveling up things. That has been the overall theme of 2023 so far, is like, so all of these things that have happened this year have exposed where there are cracks in my foundations, in my business, in my life. Luckily, I had a contract with that contractor. So that was what gave us the attorney that I spoke to was like, you have this contract in place and that's great because this is what's protecting you. So I was like, oh, thank God I have that. But otherwise it was like, how are we vetting the people that are working for me? Like, how do we guarantee, like, do we have good non-solicitation agreements in place? Do we have any non-solicitation agreements in place? Like all the things like that. And, in our home, this disorganization is totally messing with our heads and we need a better system here. And this storage is not a good use of storage. And this area, we need more baby kitchen item storage as our son graduates to eating solids and stuff like that. So getting all of that stuff together has been pivotal in building those foundations in my body, building strength back, getting flexibility back so that I can then graduate to doing like a HIIT workout maybe one day. All of that has been so pivotal this year. and has been the main focus for this like part one of exiting my flop era. And so I hope that this episode, if you're going through a tough season, that it gave you some permission to explore some different options for yourself, that it gave you some motivation and some ideas of things that you can try to help you out of it. I know that it can be so tough, so my heart is with you if you're going through a tough time right now. But I wanted to throw this out there. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from like some of the more lifestyle, life update content from my email list and on Instagram. And so I thought that this would be an interesting episode to share with you guys. Like I said, having your physical health, mental health, energy management, your general environment, all of those things, making sure that they are in a good place is going to make it possible for you to be consistent with your content, because you can't be creative if you're in pain. You can't be creative if the space around you is a mess. Well, maybe you can, but it's just not the most fun, like filming, recording situation. If your family's health is in a bad place, your capacity is going to be lowered. And what does that look like for you? So maybe we can do an episode on, staying consistent during difficult seasons. That could be interesting to talk about. So maybe I'll do that. But hopefully this episode was something to you. It was just like, even if you just wanted to hear the drama of my life, that's fine. But I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I will see you in the next one. That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Written reviews are incredible, but even a quick 5-star review is so helpful for our show. You can also rate us on Spotify. If you listen over there, you can give us 5 stars over there as well. Be sure to follow us over on Instagram and YouTube at Novice Studios CLT, and share the show with a fellow podcaster to spread the word. See you next time.